Hi, I am Cindy Underhill. I am a learning resource designer with the Center for Teaching, Learning and Technology at the University of British Columbia. I am also collaborating on the design and facilitation of Teaching with WordPress, or more affectionately known as TWP 2015. And in just a moment, I'm going to walk you through a few slides just describing a bit about our design process in the development of TWP 2015. But before I do, I wanted to let you know a little bit about me. I have been involved in the design of open educational resources, mainly on student projects for some time. I also have designed and taught courses at the college level, but I've never been involved in the design of a completely open course. So putting the two together, design courses, design open educational resources, I've never been involved in that. So this is my first time, so I'm learning a lot. Thankfully, I have a really great team to work with Christina and Will and Lucas and Rie. So I'm happy to be able to share with you what we've learned, and I look forward to touching base with you in the course or through Twitter or however we do. Okay, that's all from me in person. I'll be with you in a moment.
So this is a quote from Stephen Downes, who could be considered the father of the modern MOOC. And he builds on the work of George Siemens in developing his theory of connectivism. But I really like this quote because he reminds us that our job in designing for open learning environments is like weaving a web of connections between people, resources, and networks. And although that sounds really good, how do we actually do it? So I hope the next few slides will shed some light on some of the considerations that might be involved in this kind of web making. And at the very least, it will give you a bit of insight into some of our design decisions and approaches in the TWP course. So these design principles are Stephen's again, and they support the foundation of connectivism, which is really about people connecting with each other, learning in a social networked way, but deciding their own paths and following their interests. We also subscribe to these principles. They're foundational to our thinking about the course, but we would add a few to these. So the first that we would add is some consideration around goals. What are some worthy goals to work towards as a learning community? How do we make space for the goals that participants might bring and what's important to them as they come into the course? The second piece we would add is something around this notion of uncoverage. So what are some of the enduring questions that spark interest related to open pedagogy, related to learners' experience in that environment, related to the innovative ways that people are using WordPress? What are some of those questions? What kinds of things lead to further investigation or uncover underlying assumptions, meaning, ideas, and what spaces or threads in the web do we need to create that will support this? Next, there's designing for understanding. And for us, this requires some thinking about the big questions that are core to, in our case, the course, and then providing support for that exploration to occur. So assessment design for understanding involves finding out to what extent we can apply what we're learning thoughtfully, creatively, and flexibly in a variety of situations. So we know that doing something is not in itself evidence of understanding, but explaining how or why you came to a particular solution, decision, or idea gets a bit closer. And we want to support that process because we also think that when you see why a person came to a certain decision about their course design, it helps all of us learn or at least see things from a new perspective. And so the last piece is wayfinding. And so for us, that's how do we help learners not get lost in a non-linear, unfamiliar kind of learning environment? what kind of strategies might be helpful there. So let's think about or unpack some of those ideas and the way we've implemented them in the course. So the first thing, this question around goals, and this is really beginning with the why. So why have we developed this course? What do we think is important? And I guess when we started out, all having had experience with the development of open projects, we were pretty committed to open practices because really they're about learning in public, connection with networks of people who are doing the same thing, taking risks, exploring new ideas, and building on the ideas of each other. And we think that these are all really worthy endeavors. So an open course has the possibility of being more than just a standalone event, but really a living, breathing entity that often leaves a legacy of resources, learning traces, connections between people long after it's over, for new learners to explore and learn from. And on the practical level among our team, we're all using WordPress as a platform to help us sort of realize those practices. So I think this thinking is embodied in some of our goals, or some of the goals that we put forward on the TWP site. And we just have 3 basic ones: evaluate the affordances of incorporating open pedagogy, understand how WordPress can be used, and connect with a learning network. So that's the way we unpacked goals. So next, I'm thinking about assessment, and we were hoping that people would really reflect on their own understanding in different kind of ways throughout the course. And so we're experimenting a little bit with something called 6 facets of understanding. And this is developed by Wiggins and Matai in their book called Understanding by Design. Why did we choose this as our framework? Well, our goals are really about facilitating a process of understanding through experimentation with open tools and processes. So this seemed to fit as a framework to help guide some reflection. So here's how it breaks down. One of the facets is explain. So providing thorough, supported, justifiable accounts of our experience, phenomena, facts, data. That's part of the explanation facet. Interpret. So how do we tell meaningful stories, or offer apt translations, or provide a revealing historical or personal dimension to the ideas and events that we're discussing? And that can be either through images, analogies, or models. And then there's the application piece. And so this is really about building your own course within your own WordPress environment, effectively using, adapting the knowledge that you're gaining through your connection with others in the course and ideas that are being shared. Offering perspective, so seeing points of view that may be different than your own. Offering a critical analysis, seeing the big picture. Having the ability to empathize or find value in what others might find implausible, and being able to perceive that sensitively and just generally support and encourage each other. And then show self-knowledge. So this is about perceiving those habits of mind and biases that both shape and impede our understanding. So being aware of what's not understood and maybe why it's hard to understand. So we've shared a structure for this on the course wiki. We hope people will experiment with it. Along with the structure, we provided a link to a Google Doc so that, because it's an experiment, we'd like feedback from participants about whether or not it's useful, and if not, perhaps there's another suggestion of something else that people have used and are familiar with that would help us achieve the same goals. And here's the link to Wiggins and McTighe if you're interested in following up. So next is this issue of uncoverage. So in TWP, the weeklies offer the opportunity for interpretation, reflection on readings, or other posts around a theme or topic. It encourages interaction between participants, we hope, through comments and tweets. Works in progress are meant to be a place where participants choose what to share about their development, what they're building in their own WordPress sites, and to get feedback from peers, specifically on what they need or want feedback on. So the main point is that these themes are proposed, weekly themes, suggested topics are proposed. Some content is curated, or resources are proposed as kickstarters to investigation in a sense. Some of the strategies we're using are curation around those weekly themes of resources, video, readings, questions, an opportunity for creation. So as you're building your course, you're trying things out, making things, practicing, and then some intentional pathways for connecting, sharing, getting feedback, and extending each other's learning. So the next piece is about considering learners through wayfinding. So we've chosen to do this. When I talk about wayfinding, I mean pathways or explanatory notes, visual cues that can help learners make sense of what can be a pretty disorienting experience. And so we've chosen to do this through a bit of a learning map, and you'll find this in the syllabus. Just sort of helping people get a sense of what the components are and the pathways are in and out and around the course. And so some of the strategies we've used in relation to that are visual cues, icons, the map, color, help docs, which can be a scaffold to getting started for people who are new to social networking and blogging, weekly kickoff or summary post, sometimes webinars, and then guidelines for the community. So we've adopted this idea of post once, comment twice as a guideline, just to encourage that back and forth, sharing support and feedback to each other. So in this quote, Charles Eames, who's a renowned architect and designer, reminds us to keep our eyes on the purpose. And I feel like as a team, whenever we got stuck on a design decision, we came back to the question, why? What purpose does it serve? How will it make it easier for participants to share, discuss, get feedback, learn from each other? And so keeping purpose in mind is where this model, backwards design, where it comes in. Again, this comes from Wiggins and McTighe in their proposed framework for course design in their book, Understanding by Design. And they call it backwards design because sometimes we have a tendency to follow the shiny object and start with the learning experiences. But instead, they propose beginning with, in a sense, the end in mind. So when the course is over, how might perspectives have shifted? What's the legacy we want to leave? How might participants be changed by it or contribute to the changing of others? And so further questions along that line are, what's a worthy goal to work towards as a community? What counts as evidence of progress towards that goal? How might learners equip themselves to meet that goal? And what can we then, as facilitators, do to make a space for learning and discovery and sharing those discoveries? And what's the right balance between structure, having enough structure, and enough space? What do we need to create or assemble to provide a foundation for exploration? So all of these are questions we're grappling with in designing open courses, and we hope you'll grapple with us during the TWP course. Thanks, and see you in the course.